Constipation in betta fish is a very common ailment, and you've come to the right place to find out everything you need to know about it. Before you learn how to treat it, it's also important to know what causes it and how to prevent it. While constipation is common, it's still not great for your betta, so it's always better to learn how to prevent it rather than simply treating it. So keep watching to find out everything you need to know, and remember, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. So what is constipation? Constipation is when passing stool becomes difficult. Normally it's due to hardened feces, which can be caused by a number of reasons. If you think your betta is suffering from constipation, then there are a lot of different symptoms and causes. So what causes constipation in bettas? One of the best things you can do before treating your betta is figuring out what's causing him to be constipated. Otherwise, you'll only be repeating treatment over and over again. Here are some of the most common causes of constipation. A poor diet. When an animal doesn't have enough fibre in their diet, they're going to become constipated. One of the reasons it's easy for bettas to become constipated is because they're carnivorous. Even though they're opportunistic eaters and will eat anything that will fit in their mouths, they mostly survive on meat. So one of the first things you need to do is make sure that you're feeding them the right food. Only feeding your betta flake or freeze-dried food. If your betta's diet consists solely of fish flakes or freeze-dried food, then the chances are he's not getting enough fibre in his diet. In fact, most fish that live off this diet are prone to constipation. Because flakes and freeze-dried food are so dry, the moment they come into contact with moisture, they begin to expand. And because bettas are so gutty, they'll eat them before they're fully expanded. So if you plan on feeding your betta these flakes or freeze-dried food, make sure you're soaking them beforehand. Alternatively, you can use pellets. Pellets are recommended as part of a balanced diet, and if you buy high-quality ones, they will decrease the chance of your betta becoming constipated. Not enough live food. You should also make sure that your betta is getting enough whole animals in their diet. While pellets contain a lot of the essential nutrients, they are lacking certain essentials. Once again, they don't contain a lot of fibre. Eating other animals is important for carnivorous fish because they indirectly consume some fibre from the contents of their prey's stomach. As well as this, their skeletons are full of chitin, which is fibre-rich. The combination of stomach contents and chitin-rich skeletons means that your betta will get plenty of fibre. Daphnia and mosquito larvae are particularly good sources of this. Too much bloodworm. Contrary to popular belief, bloodworms shouldn't be a staple part of your betta's diet, but instead a treat. While they do have a lot of nutrition in them, a constant diet of them is going to do more harm than good. And when there are much better alternatives such as Daphnia that give your betta a lot more nutrition, you should use bloodworms sparingly. Overfeeding. Overfeeding can be another cause of constipation in betta fish, and it's one that's extremely common. Bettas are gutty fish and will keep eating even when they're completely full up. That's why it's important to only feed your betta a couple of times a day, and only for a couple of minutes, otherwise you can bet your betta will become constipated. Swim bladder disease. Believe it or not, swim bladder disease isn't a disease. In fact, it's a symptom of a whole range of ailments. And while it's possible that constipation is causing swim bladder disease in your betta, it's also possible the other way around, that the symptoms of swim bladder disease are causing constipation. An infection or injury could be causing your betta's organs to swell, and if this is happening, it could be causing constipation. So if you notice other symptoms of swim bladder disease, then you should try to assess what's causing what. Not enough exercise. And lastly, is your betta getting enough exercise? If you're not sure, then just think about the size of the tank. While many people believe that bettas can survive in a tank as small as 1 gallon, that's not the truth. And in my opinion, even 2.5 gallons is too small. You should keep your betta in a tank that's a minimum of 5 gallons. However, there's no limit. Bigger is better. So if you're housing your betta in a small tank and he can't swim around a lot, then it could be causing constipation as well. What are the symptoms of constipation in betta fish? There are a few symptoms that can let you know that your betta is constipated. If you notice any of the symptoms in this video, then you should begin treating your betta for constipation. However, you should also take note of any other symptoms because your betta may be suffering from illnesses that are a lot worse than constipation, and the sooner you catch them, the greater chance your betta will survive. Here are some of the main symptoms. Stringy feces. While this can be hard to spot unless you're watching your betta 24/7, you should look for stringy feces. In a healthy betta, feces will sink to the substrate every time. However, when your betta is constipated, his feces will be stringy and hang from him. If you notice this, then you should begin treating for constipation as soon as you can. Not eating and spitting out food. This symptom isn't a clear sign that your betta is constipated, but it could be a good indicator. If you find that your betta is ignoring his food, which is extremely abnormal behaviour for bettas, or if he's spitting it out, then you should look for other signs as well. If you notice this symptom along with some of the other symptoms of constipation, then you can make a more educated decision. However, a lack of appetite is a very common symptom of a whole range of illnesses and disease, so you shouldn't trust this symptom alone. Lethargic and not swimming. When your stomach is completely full, the last thing you want to do is move. You should check to see how energetic or lethargic your Betta is looking. If he doesn't seem to be swimming around as much as usual, then constipation could be the cause. However, once again, this is a very common symptom in a lot of illnesses, so you shouldn't just go off this one alone. A bloated belly. Another common sign of constipation in Betta fish is a bloated belly. If your Betta is having trouble emptying their bowels and the feces isn't going to go anywhere, the longer the time that goes by, the bigger your Betta's belly is going to get. If you notice your Betta's belly is bloated or bulging, then you should start treating him for constipation. However, just make sure it isn't dropsy. The easiest way to know if it isn't dropsy is to make sure that your Betta's scales aren't pine coning. This is when they stick out. If your Betta does exhibit these symptoms, then you'll need to act immediately to treat dropsy. Trouble swimming. In more extreme cases, constipation could end up making it difficult for your Betta to swim. If this is the case, then you should start treating your Betta as soon as possible because he's going to be incredibly uncomfortable. At this point, he's going to be suffering from swim bladder disease, so as well as checking for the symptoms of constipation, you should also learn about swim bladder disease to make sure your Betta isn't suffering from an ailment that is more serious. How to treat Betta fish constipation. Now that you're confident that your Betta is suffering from constipation, the next step is to start treatment. There are multiple ways you can treat constipation in Bettas, but most of them revolve around feeding your Bettas food high in fibre. Just like in people, the high fibre diet will start to get everything moving again. One method people recommend is feeding your Betta peas. If you want to feed your Betta a pea to help his constipation, you can't just drop it in. You're going to need to prepare it first. However, preparation is easy and shouldn't take more than a couple of minutes. To prepare a pea, simply do the following. The first thing you're going to need to do is soften the pea. To do this, place it in boiling water for about 30 seconds, or 1 minute if it's been frozen. Once you've done this, take the pea out and allow it to cool down. You can cool it quicker by running it under cold water for a little bit. Once your pea is cold again, you should remove the skin. When the skin is removed, feed half the pea to your Betta. Once you've fed the pea to your Betta, starve him for 24 hours and wait to see if there's improvement. If you don't notice any improvements after 24 hours, then try feeding him half a pea again. Once again, starve him for 24 hours. If you don't notice an improvement, start feeding your Betta as normal and move on to the next step. And make sure you're feeding your Betta high quality pellets or live food like Daphnia. Treating your Betta with Epsom salt. In more severe cases of constipation, or if peas aren't working, you should try using Epsom salt to treat your Betta. Epsom salt is a mild muscle relaxant, and if it's only constipation your Betta is suffering from, it could do the trick. Here's how to use Epsom salt effectively. Remove some water from your tank and place it into a clean container. Add 1 teaspoon per 5 gallons of Epsom salt to the container. Once you've added the Epsom salt, stir it well until it's completely dissolved. Add the water back into the tank. If your Betta is in a community tank, then you should move him to a quarantine tank. You should keep your Betta in this tank for about a week until you notice his constipation is dissipating. Other ways to treat constipation. There are 2 other things you should try when treating your Betta for constipation. Before anything else, you should fast your Betta for 2 to 3 days. While you may think this is cruel, don't worry too much. In the wild, it's not uncommon for your Betta to go without food for a couple of days. And secondly, if nothing else is working, then you should try to give your Betta some Daphnia to eat. Remember earlier when I talked about chitin-rich skeletons that are fibrous, while Daphnia are full of them. How to prevent constipation in Bettas. Treating constipation is good, but preventing it is even better. Here are some of the best ways to prevent constipation in your Betta. Fasting. One great way to stop your Betta from getting constipated is to fast him. It won't have to be as severe as 2 to 3 days in a row, but even once every week or 2 should do the job. When you fast your Betta, you give his intestines time to empty fully. This is going to stop any buildup of feces, which will in turn stop constipation from occurring. Don't overfeed your Betta. Your Betta's stomach is about the size of his eyeball, so it's very easy to overfeed him. If you're not sure how much food you should feed your Betta, then a rule of thumb is to feed him for 2 minutes twice a day. Even if he's full up, he will keep on eating, so it's important you impose a time limit. Give him a varied diet. You shouldn't just be feeding your Betta high quality Betta pellets. Instead, you should be varying his diet a lot. For example, every so often you could give him a blanched pea or bloodworms as a treat. And of course, make sure you're feeding him a lot of healthy live food, such as Daphnia and mosquito larvae. They're going to give your Betta the roughage he needs to keep his intestines moving in the right direction. Consider buying a bigger tank. Constipation isn't always to do with food. How big is your Betta's tank? If it's under 5 gallons, then you should consider upgrading to something bigger. Not only is a bigger tank going to decrease the chance of your Betta becoming constipated, but it's going to have a whole range of great benefits. In fact, if you make sure you follow all the advice above, then you're going to drastically reduce the chance of your Betta becoming constipated. However, sometimes it may still happen, and if so, make sure you stick to the right treatments and your Betta will be happy and active again in no time. Can Betta fish die from constipation? If you don't think constipation is a big deal, then you should think again. While most of the time constipation isn't going to be an issue, if it's left untreated, then there can be grave side effects. Grave side effects. Your Betta is more prone to suffer from swim bladder disease, which will stress him out more. The more stressed he becomes, the weaker his immune system will be, and the more likely he will be infected with a serious infection or disease. So if you notice your Betta looks constipated, you should act immediately to reduce the chance of something worse happening. There's a lot of information to absorb in this article, so it's best just to recap all the important information again. Here's what you should remember. The biggest cause of constipation in your Betta is poor diet, followed by lack of exercise. If your Betta isn't being fed a varied diet, if the food is low quality, and especially if he's being fed too much, then it's likely he will suffer from constipation at some point. You may have heard that your Betta can live off bloodworms or eat them all the time. This isn't the case, and you should only use them as a treat. The two most clear signs of constipation in your Betta are bloating and stringy feces. If you notice your Betta's stomach is bulging and feces is hanging off your Betta instead of sinking to the bottom of the tank, then the chances are he's constipated. As well as those two symptoms, he may also act lethargic, avoid food and spit it out, have trouble swimming, and in more severe cases suffers from swim bladder disease. There are a number of different ways you can treat your Betta, but before any, you should fast him for 2 to 3 days. Failing that, try feeding him a boiled pea or some daphnia. If neither of those work, then you should move him to a quarantine tank and add 1 teaspoon of Epsom salt for 5 gallons of water. To prevent constipation in your Betta, make sure you're not feeding him too much. Stick to feeding him for 2 minutes twice a day. Also, you should fast him for a day every couple of weeks, as well as giving him daphnia and peas as a treat and add more fibre to his diet. And lastly, if your Betta is suffering from constipation for too long, don't leave it. Over time, it will weaken his immune system, making him more susceptible to other diseases. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Have a great day.